Managing people doesn't have to be scary. Whether you struggle with hiring or firing employees, developing individuals or teams, or even managing workplace relationships, I have some answers that can help you establish your approach. I'm Phil Badley, a leadership coach who helps business owners to lead better and more productive lives. I've developed some great content aimed at small businesses that want to focus on improving their performance. Now, the context is set in the therapy sector, although the principles I'm sharing are the same regardless of the business that you're running. I hope they can help you with the challenge that you're facing. So why not take a look and see how my tips can help you to improve your approach to managing people. I'm going to take you through the process that's involved in recruiting and selecting good people. Now, in my past, I've been responsible for recruitment strategy, recruitment operations in large organisations, and I've been involved in literally thousands of appointments from cleaners to corporate CEOs. And I'll be sharing some of my insights and my learning and my understanding of the recruitment and selection process as we go. Now, if you've not already looked at the content on designing your therapy business, then please go and take a look at that next, as it will really help you make the links between your business need and the decisions that you're going to need to make about recruiting. So let's just take a quick look at what I'm going to cover. And I've called this section Defining Your Scope. So if we're going to look at what's your business need. Are you on a growth journey? Are you needing to replace? Are you just getting started? And if you're just getting started, there's often a tendency to copy and paste or to phone a friend. We're going to push you away from that. Making preparations, what are you actually looking for? Often people don't really think about that. Attracting applicants. Always remember it's a two-way process, particularly in the marketplace we find ourselves at the moment. And there is lots to think about. Screening and selecting. Now, how will we know and how will we decide whether we've got the right person? Then we're going to move on and take a look at making an offer. We're going to look at rates of pay and all the legal stuff. We're going to move on then and look at induction and onboarding. It's a bit more these days than hang your coat up and crack on, although I know with some of the businesses we work, it actually feels a little bit like that. You know, the pressure is on, the appointments are there, find an experienced person, just get them moving. There's pros and cons of doing that, and we'll explain a little bit more as we go. And then we move into what I've called performance review. So that's establishing the relationships, feedback mechanisms, giving people the opportunity to develop. And I'm going to split this section of the video into two. So we're going to run from up to attracting applicants, and then we're going to move on in a separate section to look at the selection process and beyond. So it gives you an opportunity to do your thinking before you then actually start to think about the selection process. So let's move on and let's look at your business need. So you could be a first-time recruiter, in which case you could be thinking about how on earth do I get started. It's quite a scary process. Particularly if you've not been involved in it before. Some of you will perhaps be working in or have been working in the NHS and now be working on your own and then looking to recruit. And it's a very different feeling to be recruiting for your own business than it is perhaps if you were a manager or an office holder in the NHS, where you were subject to their rigorous routines and procedures in terms of how and when you make selection processes. Alternatively, you could be in business, have colleagues already in the organisation and be looking to replace somebody. So are you going to replace like for like? What did you learn about the last employee in terms of their pros, their cons, their good points? What would you do differently? And what kind of skill set might you be looking for that's different this time? And also your business has moved on. What do you need? What's changed in terms of your business? And how does that need to reflect upon the person that you're looking for? You may be expanding. So if you expand in your business, are you looking for more of the same? And actually more of the same is often difficult because it is literally impossible to clone people. So everybody that joins your organisation is going to bring a different skill set, different experience. They may have the same qualification, but as you know, no two people are the same. You could be splitting a role as your business grows, an individual may have more than one role within the organisation, and then as that role grows, then actually you need to segment parts of that role and bring some additional skill or expertise in. In addition, you could be expanding or growing into new markets or bringing in different levels of technical knowledge and information. So you might be bringing new skills and capabilities into your organisation. Now, ideally, you've got a business plan. And if you haven't, we've got resources on the Academy to help you, but you really need a clear view about where your organisation is going and what you're trying to achieve. Another area to look will be your performance data. Now, we talk quite a lot about KPIs. So what information have you got within your organisation that's telling you that you need to recruit somebody, to replace somebody, or to split a job? What data, what evidence can you use to help you with that? And then last but not least, cash flow, because you've got to be able to afford it. So do you know what your cash flow projection looks like and what you would need to pay in the marketplace to get the person you're looking for? And if all that adds up, then that means we can move forward. So let's look at getting started, as I call it. So there's a big tendency in most industries to do what I call copy and paste. Go and find somebody that's already got some information about the particular skill set you're looking for. Let's say it's a receptionist, or it could be a physiotherapist. Now, for me, I would say please don't do that. Why? Because for me, it's a bit like going shopping. You really need to be clear before you go out or as you move around what it is you're actually looking for, and you start to make decisions then about specifically what you are looking for. Now, the rule of thumb for me in recruitment processes is be clear about what you're looking for before you start, because once you're out there in the marketplace, it becomes much more difficult to discern the A-grade candidate from the C-grade candidate. So how might we go about defining that need? Well, you might be doing what's called an exit interview. So if you have got an employee that's leaving, have you got a process in place that actually enables you to sit down with them and have a conversation about what they enjoyed, what they didn't enjoy, what they would do differently, why they're moving on? Because in some instances you can actually renegotiate and keep the person, particularly if they're a good employee of yours, within your business. Alternatively, you can be looking at your data. What is your data telling you about customer journey, about financial performance of your organisation, about throughput, about the nature of inquiries? How are you going to use that to shape the type of individual and the type of role that you're looking for? In the introductions, we talked about more of the same or different. So be clear about if somebody's, your receptionist has resigned, has that job changed? How has that job changed? Has the person in that role actually changed and grown that job over time? So if you go back to a cut and paste model, you wouldn't know how that job had necessarily changed, and therefore what needs to be reflected in your thinking and your paperwork. Then we're into roles and responsibilities. So hopefully you've got some kind of basic structure chart within your organisation that would be clear about who is doing what and where the responsibility and the accountabilities lie. Now, if you're splitting a job, that could impact upon the person that you have within your organisation who's already doing that work. Now, that might be a godsend to them because they might be so busy, they're saying to you, I can no longer do X. Social media marketing has grown so much these days that actually it's taken up too much of my time and I can't do the accounts. Now, if that's all well and good, then involve that individual in that process. If you're thinking about it and they're not, then it's going to come as a surprise. Now, they'll also have some rights as an employee about the nature of the role that they're doing. So you need to think about the engagement and the consultation process with your employees if you're actually affecting the structure or the roles of the jobs that you're doing. And again, there's more information on the site about how you would do that and some advice from our employment lawyer from KBL. If workloads are changing, then what is that about? Is that a peak in terms of the volumes that are coming into your business? Does it look like a permanent change? Again, what's your data telling you? Are you looking for a full-timer, a full-time need and resource? Could you outsource that to a third party as an activity until it grows to the point where actually you might want to bring it back into your organisation? And there again, why are we looking to recruit? Is there a way of using technology, perhaps the technology we've already got that we're not making full effect of, or perhaps alternative technology that would take away the requirement for the need to have a person? And I know there's a lot these days around in the booking system and our accounting systems that actually enable us to do an awful lot more electronically than we would have done perhaps in the past, where we might have relied upon a colleague or a friend or member of the family actually to do some of this work. So once you've got a clear picture like that, you then really need to start about defining your ideal role. And here again, you need to be really specific. What are you thinking about? What functions in your organisation? What tasks? What outcomes? What knowledge and experience are those individuals going to need actually to perform well in that job? And then when you've thought about that, the next area is really to think about the roles and the skill set and whether or not they exist in the marketplace. Because clearly, if you're going to advertise a job, there need to be people out there that have got the skills, the knowledge and experience that you need to help you move on to the next stage. Then it's important that you start to think about describing your ideal employee or associate. And here again, I would say thinking marketing terms. And if you're uncomfortable with the idea of avatars or thinking about market segmentation, then again, go and have a look at the resources that we've got around sales and marketing. It's really important that we get clear about who our ideal candidate is. Their attributes, their knowledge, their skills, their background, their experience, their behaviours. And also to be thinking about where they might be working right now. If you're looking for a receptionist, then what type of skill set do you think they'll have? Within your locality, where might they be working? Coffee shops, salons, competitors, somewhere in retail. Go and do some market research and find out who's out there and what type of skills use your network. And then think about the resourcing options. So you now know what you're looking for. Are you looking for somebody on a permanent basis, perhaps a temporary basis to cover absence or maternity? Are you going to do all this yourself, or are you going to work with an agency to help them? You could be looking for virtual support and get a virtual assistant to give you some help, in which case you're looking at potentially a much wider geography. And as I've already mentioned, you could be using better technology that would alleviate the need to recruit somebody in the first place. So getting a clear view and a sense of the types of skills and experience you need is really important. And then before you go out to advertising, just think about whether or not that individual already exists within your team, because we often overlook the potential that exists within our own team. It could be something that we could do in terms of organisation or in terms of activities where we enable somebody within our organisation actually to take on some of these duties, which means that we actually move some of the receptionist's duties onto a different role. So actually we're moving the skill sets around within our business because we know somebody is really good at what they do. So always think about your internal capacity and the talent you've got working for you. So let's move on now to think about making preparations. Now, some kind of role or job description is going to be critical. It's critical for two reasons. One is it helps you get your thinking straight in terms of what that role is, but it also can act and does act as a mechanism to help people who are interested, your potential job applicants, to take a look at what you're looking for in terms of that role and requirement and see how it fits with their own experience. So defining the tasks and the outcomes that are expected is really important. Now, I've obviously seen a lot of role definitions in my working life, and some of them are pages and pages and pages long and literally describe every aspect, every component of a job. For me, that's not what this exercise is about. This exercise is about thinking about the major functions, the major actions, the tasks and activities that you want that job to perform. And the more you can think about them in outcome terms, in other words, not what that task does, but what actually it's there to enable some part of the organisation to achieve, then the better. 1 page, 2 pages, more than enough. So not War and Peace. The person specification. So we've talked about the job. What about the human being that's actually going to undertake that work? So think about the education, the qualifications, the knowledge, the skills, the experience that you think that individual is going to need to do the job. Now, you might need to take some help. You might need to talk to other people in your organisation. You might need to get some expert support, particularly if you're new to this type of thing. Ideally, you would split some of those into what I would call essential and desirable. So essentials being the components of the job that actually absolutely have to be done, and the skill set that requires that individual to be highly experienced and come in and do that job almost without supervision. There are others that I would call desirable. Now, with desirables, they're ideally things that you would also like that individual to be able to achieve. So I'll give you a quick example of, if it was a receptionist, then for a receptionist you might actually say it would be great if the receptionist had a first aid certificate. Now, if they don't, and somebody else does and they're ideally matched, then you can make a difference. If they don't, and it's a desirable and something that you would like to see, then in your selection process you can actually think about whether or not that individual would be interested in developing that as a skill. One thing I'd expressly ask you to think about is beware of experience qualifications, 3 to 5 years, 10 to 15 years. I usually explain this in a fairly straightforward work. So let's imagine you're looking at an individual that's got 10 years experience. So in your average cycle, business cycle in a year, it may mean that person has done exactly the same job in exactly the same way for 10 years. So for me, that's 1 year repeated 10 times. That's one way of describing 10 years experience. Alternatively, an individual could have moved and done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 jobs in a 10-year period, all of which have helped them to build their knowledge, their skills, their breadth and their understanding. So actually, you're looking for 2 different things. So using age as a criteria is often misleading. And the irony is that the person that has moved around and got the best experience often doesn't meet the criteria in a person specification in the same way. So just think about how you're using years to potentially deselect your best candidates. Next area to think about is what I would define as pay and reward. So what do they actually get for working with you? What does your pay policy say? Now, pay policy again doesn't have to be masses and masses of pages, but actually hopefully you have got something there that's determined how much you're willing to pay different roles within the organisation on the basis of their skills, ability and their qualifications. And you need to be clear about that and clear about how much you're prepared to pay. And also do your market research. Are your pay rates and your benefits in line with your competitors in the marketplace? And that's going to be important potentially in terms of attraction. But always remember that pay is not a motivator. Now, that often doesn't fall particularly well on people's ears because most of us think we probably deserve more money than we're actually getting now. But that's because that's called a dissatisfier. So once we think we're paid reasonably in the marketplace, then actually it no longer becomes an issue. Once we can pay our bills and live a lifestyle, actually an extra £10, an extra £1,000 a year, an extra £5,000 a year is not going to have the same motivation as a great place to be working where you give an opportunity and you listen to and engage. So just think about where your pay points are in the marketplace. Then you're going to need to think about employment terms. Now, be clear about what it is you're offering. Are you offering an associate arrangement? Are you looking for an employee? Are they going to be permanent? Are they going to be temporary, fixed, full-time, part-time? Have they got fixed hours or flexible hours and flexible days? Again, these are all things that you need to be thinking about in terms of your capacity and the way your organisation works. And you need to be clear with candidates about what that offer looks like. And then finally in this section, think about the contract of employment. Now, legislation requires you to have a contract of employment in place on day one. Now, you may already have a contract in place, an existing document. My question is it up to date? If not, have a look in our HR Matters section and look for some of the great content that's been provided by Sarah Collier, our partner in employment law. And if you need more help there, just drop us a line and we can give you some support. At this point, what I now want to do is to think about attracting applicants. So we're clear about what we're looking for, we're clear in design, and now we need to think about how we go out to market, how we're going to attract. Well, I've already said don't copy and paste, and often we copy and paste adverts as well, or we borrow somebody else's from an online platform, or from a neighbour or through social media. There's more to it than that, and what I want you to do is to invite you to think about this as a pitch. There are lots of people out there, and there are lots and lots of organisations. Why would anybody want to work for your business? Now, in corporate world, it's what I would call an employee value proposition. And in the resources section associated with this particular video is a list of questions that I use to help you think about what your pitch is and how you're going to sell this role to the market. Because the clearer your pitch and the clearer you're able to reflect that pitch in your advertisement, in your conversations with individual, in your materials, the better. Then we need to think about advertising sources. So you could be using your network and hopefully your brand reputation within your geography. You've got a website. Now, a lot of people don't actually use their own website as a place to attract or at least share information about what it's like to work in your organisation and the ads that you might carry. I'm guessing you're connected through social media channels, so you can be thinking about how you use your own social media channels. You'll have a bunch of social media subscribers, and you may well have a MailChimp database. Think about who you've got within that database and who they may well be connected to, and how you might be able to use them as advocates for the people that you're looking for. Think about universities and relationships with your local university and the graduates that are coming out or have recently come out or within the last 2 or 3 years have come out? Where are they? How connected are you? Hopefully you've got a LinkedIn page for your company. Hopefully you're active on LinkedIn. You can use your followers on LinkedIn. Then think about advertising in a more traditional sense. But you can also post and actually pay for advertising on your LinkedIn platform. Then start to think, as I know many of you do, about paid for recruitment platforms, and job boards, and there are many out there, and with varied results. My argument would be that if you've put in the groundwork, then actually the advertisement that you're putting on that recruitment platform is potentially going to have more impact, because people are going to be driven by your pitch to come and have a look at the information that you're actually putting out there in terms of attraction. Then in preparation, you need to be thinking about your process. So how are you going to recruit, and how are you going to select those individuals? And you need to be clear with candidates about what you're expecting. So be clear, define it, think about it in advance, just don't make it up after the closing date. How will people actually apply? How do you want them to apply? Are they applying by an email address directly to you? Are they coming via a platform? Are they going to a third party? Are they going to your business manager? All of that needs to be in place and thought through before you actually go out to market. And always remember that the relationship begins at inquiry. So anybody that starts to look at the information and express any type of connection with you is already on what we would think of as your customer journey. So if you think of a potential applicant more as a customer than as a recruit, then you can think about how we use our 10-step model in terms of our customer journey, and think about what that would look like from a recruitment point of view. If you want to know more about that, kind of have a look in the customer services section in business operations. Then think about timelines. Now we need to plot them before you advertise. You need to think about a reasonable time for an advert. You need to be thinking about the space and the time that you'll need to put into your diary to enable you to connect with candidates, to sift paperwork, CVs, to have conversations, to make preparations. If you're going to involve anybody else in your organisation, and I'd strongly recommend that you're always in a pair at least, then you need to make sure that they're available and they've planned time into their diary. Because I know, particularly within therapy businesses, then we're often planning ahead in terms of when clients are going to return for further support or new bookings. And the last thing you need is to lose 1-2 days or even worse weeks because you haven't put the planning in place, because good candidates don't hang around. And when you've got those dates, then why not publicise them? Thinking about your selection process, you have to think about decision making. You have to be clear about who and how. So is it going to be you as the business owner? Is it going to be a member of your team? What authority have those individuals got to take and make decisions? And always remember that it's a two-way process. Candidates are actually looking at your organisation and looking at you and thinking, is this a place that I'd like to work? In fact, really good candidates have probably already been and had a look around your organisation, perhaps even as a customer, as a client, or at least been and had a poke around, because that's the kind of thing I would do and have done in the past. Go for a look, get a sense of the place, ask my network. So all of this is really important around managing reputation. Once you've made a decision, The key is to act quickly, because that individual could get snapped up and move off somewhere else. This is the end of this first stage of looking at the recruitment and selection process in overview. So we encourage you to take stock as a business, to actually get clear about what it is you need, and is recruitment the appropriate way to move forward. Thinking specifically about the role and the individual that you are looking to find, assuming that you are going out to marketplace, and then putting in place a firm plan with some key milestones in it and some key decision making steps in place so that you can act quickly once you've found the right candidate. Now, in the next section, we're actually going to go on to look at recruitment and selection, to look at some of the contractual matters in highlights, and then move on to think about induction, onboarding and performance. So I look forward to seeing you in the next section.